Okay, so today's lecture is on rule formalism, how to formalize phonological processes using most of the time conventions from the sound pattern of English, that is from generative phonology sound pattern of English. We're going to see five or four types of rules. First, feature changing rules, rules for deletion and insertion, rules for permutation and coalescence, and rules with variables. We're not going to see mirror rules. Just four types we will be dealing with only four types of rules, and we will skip mirror rules. Now, as you can see from this slide, we need, in order to formalize rules, we need the three types of information as indicated below. First thing, we need to know what are or which segment changes, and that's A. That is, A refers to the focus or the target of the change, and B, how they change, or what is the structural change. This is the information that is found between the arrow and the slash. And on the right of the slash, you will find the conditions under which this change happens, what we call the context or the trigger. There are a certain number of conventions that we're going to see, and one of these conventions is in A, where we're using a minimal set or minimal feature specifications of the segment that undergoes the change. So it can be a segment or a number of segments. Here we have the class of minus sonorant, minus continuant. We are referring here to obstruents, that is stops. Stops, they become minus voice. They are devoiced word finally. In B, we have a feature minus voice that changes. And in C, we have the context, specification of the context. Most of the time, we refer to the right hand context and left hand context. And the underscore refers to the target or the focus of the change. What is the segment that changes is here. In this rule, the word final position, that is the right hand context, is the one that determines this change. In this rule, actually, we use a number of conventions because actually one of these conventions is when there are certain features, for example, minus sonorant, minus continuant, are not repeated on the right of the arrow, because these do not change. Minus sonorant, minus continuants do not change, and so we delete them. See, these are deleted. We only keep the feature that changes, which is minus voice. And
To
also,
avoid the redundant.
yeah, because it's redundant. The same redundancy again here, plus voice, since plus voice becomes minus voice, we do not repeat the opposite of this minus voice. We do not repeat it here. Okay, so we delete that, right? So this is the final rule. minus sonorant minus continuant is changed into minus voice. So we don't repeat plus voice here. And we don't keep the features that do not change. Minus sonorant and minus continuant don't change, and so we don't repeat them. So these are two conventions that are built into this rule. And in general, these conventions are used when we want to formalize phonological processes. All right, next. Now we're going to start with the brace notation. Remember the example from French, nasalization in French, and remember that nasalization applies word finally, and also it applies when there is a nasal consonant following a vowel. All right, so here in the first set of data, nasalization word finally. So here, word finally, and when of course there is a nasal consonant following the vowel. But it also applies when there is a consonant following the nasal consonant. So in order to collapse, because these two rules are related, you know. First, we call it rule A and rule B. They are related, and so in order to capture this relatedness and to express a general, to miss this generalization, we're gonna use the brace notation. So the brace notation is to refer to an environment which is alternate. That is, a vowel is when a consonant, when a vowel is nasalized, when it is followed by nasal consonant, either word finally or when a consonant follows the nasal consonant. That's the meaning of the brace notation, to express the alternate or disjunct environment. All right, so that's the brace notation. We move on now to the parenthesis notation. Remember, I'm not sure if we have seen this example from Dutch. Dutch has a regressive voicing assimilation. What we mean by regressive is let me use the pointer. What we mean by let's see the pointer here. Right. What we mean by regressive is that the rule applies from right to left. Whenever there is a voiceless stop next to a voiced stop, it is voiced. Voicing regressive assimilation. This rule applies inside words, or of course this is a suffix here, but in this language, this voicing regressive assimilation also applies across word boundaries, so that the p becomes b even across word boundaries. So you see, it's also voicing assimilation also is a rule that applies across word boundaries. Now again, we have two rules, two sub-rules, rule A, okay, and rule B. In order to say that the word boundary is optional, that is, it might be there or it might not be there, then we use the parenthesis notation, okay? The parenthesis notation refers to or expresses the optional presence of elements. Here, the word boundary is an optional element. The rule, the voicing assimilation, applies across words and within, inside words. So that's the parenthesis notation. All right, so now we move to see how we can formalize rules for deletion. Remember the data from French where we have deletion of a consonant like t, word finally, and in order to refer to deletion, we use the null symbol. What this rule says is that a consonant, by the way, we use C for consonant segments, and we use V for vowel segments. Okay, so here what the rule says, a consonant, sorry? What the rule says is that
I can see. Sorry.
a consonant is deleted. The null symbol means that the consonant is deleted when it occurs finally or when it is followed by another consonant. Remember, the brace notation means either word finally or when it is followed by another consonant. So to use deletion, we use the null symbol. And inversely, when we want to formalize the rules for insertion, we also use the null symbol. Remember the insertion of the shva in Moroccan Arabic to break the cluster of three consonants. So to formalize this rule, we use the null symbol. Um, Null symbol insert a shva in order to break a cluster of three consonants. All right, so that's how we formalize rules for insertion. And now we move on to other types of form of other rules. So far, we have we have seen only rules that affect one segment but there are rules that affect more than one segment, and one example of such rule is metathesis. Remember metathesis in Hanunu. What metathesis does in this language is that we switch the order of two segments. The sequence of glottal plus fricative s becomes s and then followed by the glottal stop. How are we going to formalize this metathesis rule is by using the transformational format. Now, transformational rule format, what it does is it lists this here. We're going to list the string of segments, all right, and the boundaries. The string of segments will be listed on the left of the arrow. We are going to repeat each string, and for example here we're saying that we have a vowel here. Okay, that's the vowel here, and that's one. And then we have the glottal stop. That's number two. That's two. And followed by a consonant and then a vowel. This is vowel here. vowel number 4. Now this consonant is represented by its features. Remember that a glottal stop is minus consonantal, since it is a glottal consonants are minus consonantal because their constrictions is not inside the vocal tract. They are minus sonorant because there is a constriction that doesn't allow voicing to be spontaneous, and it's minus continuance because it is a stop. What's the change is actually after the arrow, we are not going to repeat the string of the elements. We only reproduce the segments by identifying them with the help of digits or numbers. Okay, what this rule says is that we change the order. Instead of having 2, 3, we'll have 3, 2. So metathesis will be changing the order of segments. Instead of having 1, 2, 3, 4, we have 1, 3, 2. All right. So that's how we formalize metathesis rules using the transformational format. We use also the transformational format in order to formalize rules for coalescence. Remember the nasalization in French that applies, nasalization applies word finally. It applies word finally here. And it also applies when there is a consonant following the nasal consonant here, right? Well, actually, what we are the way we formalize nasalization in French is to consider it as a coalescence. That is, actually, it's not a coalescence in the sense that we separate the two rules. First, we have nasalization, and then we have deletion of the nasal consonant. So here, first we apply nasalization, and then we delete the consonant. So how are we going to formalize this rule using the transformational format? So we copy the strings here. So you've got a vowel followed by a nasal consonant. So here, vowel followed by a nasal consonant, vowel followed by a nasal consonant. Either you have a consonant here or word or consonant here or word finally. All right. So what happens, what is the change that we notice is that this vowel, which is number 1, referred to as number 1, as 1 gets nasalized, gets the feature plus nasal. And what happens to the nasal consonant? The nasal consonant is deleted. And of course, the segment number 3 is kept unchanged. So the rules with variables. We're going to see an example from Moroccan Arabic. In Moroccan Arabic, we have a assimilation. We have when we have the word brid, I got cold, and jbit, I pulled. The final consonant of the word gets devoiced when it is followed by a voiceless consonant. Okay, so we continue with the voicing assimilation in Moroccan Arabic. The final consonant of the word, it gets devoiced, okay, when there is a voiceless consonant, when a following, when there is a voiceless consonant follows that. Actually, it is a prefix. Similarly, when we have a when the word starts with a consonant, with a voiced consonant, that voiced consonant again affects a voiceless consonant, and it becomes voiced. So actually, we have two subrules, um, devoicing here and voicing. Okay, devoicing and voicing. But this devoicing and voicing are two subrules that are related. Okay, what is the relatedness is whenever there is a sequence of two consonants, the second consonant always affects the first. Okay, the first gets affected by the second. If you want, the first segment assimilates to the second. If the second is voiceless, then the first becomes voiceless. If it is voiced, then it becomes voiced. If the second is voiced, it becomes voiced. So in order to capture this, in order to formalize this rule of voicing, we can write two rules. Rule number one and rule B. The first word rule is for devoicing, and the second word is for voicing. Okay. So what we are saying is that a minus sonorant plus anterior, that is a coronal stop, will be devoiced when it occurs before a voiceless coronal. And the same thing, a coronal which is devoiced, becomes voiced when it is followed by a voiced consonant. So in order to capture the relatedness of these two rules, we can coalesce them by using the alpha notation, alpha. What does alpha means? It means that it stands for plus, plus, minus, minus. That is, if alpha here, if we have a plus voiced consonant, then this alpha will be replaced by plus. If we have minus here, it will be replaced by minus. So we use the alpha notation to coalesce the two rules, voicing and devoicing assimilation, and we express a generalization.